Hey guys, welcome to the LT Brings the Heat podcast. We're your hosts, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler, where we talk about baseball and sports performance. With topics ranging from coaching, business, and player development, our goal is to bring you a no BS approach to development in baseball and sports performance. Hope you guys enjoy. Let's rock and roll.
Hey guys, welcome to another episode of LT Brings the Heat. We're your hosts, Sean Laird and Adam Heisler. We got an episode today that we're going to talk about nutrition and supplementation. We're going to talk about eating, how to gain weight, lean muscle, talking about maybe some guys that want to lose a little weight. Usually with what we do with baseball players and guys in the weight room, football players, wrestlers, there's usually a gaining weight process. So we're usually trying to teach guys how to eat to gain weight, recover quicker, basically be able to bounce back the next day with high energy. So we're going to try to cover up a lot of topics. I get really pissed off when I talk about this topics at times because I got kids that I literally beat in their head that they're not eating enough, and kind of go from there to kind of give you guys some background about guys that have had success and guys that haven't had success on gaining weight. Because I've said, hey, we put on 20 to 30 pounds of muscle in a year for guys, and I had a college baseball coach who's been in the game for a long time and goes, is that even possible? So this is something that, like, I guess for us, like it's kind of hard to forget what what people don't know. And so we want to kind of cover this as much as possible. But Adam, kind of, how's everything going with you, man? And kind of how do you want to touch on this today?
No, everything's going great. I'm excited to kind of touch on this. It's just another piece of the puzzle. We talked about the mental approach a couple weeks ago, and now we're talking about how important nutrition is and feeding the body the right way. And to keep it simple is just the old slogan you see is, if you have a Lamborghini, you're not putting regular unleaded gas into it. It's premium all the time, every time. Otherwise, that car is going to shut down. So you've got to really just treat your body like that. So we're going to kind of dive in deep here. I think the biggest thing that we both get asked, honestly, is right away is, hey, what supplements do we need to take? We just started working out, and we'll both kind of dive into it later. But it all starts with food first, is food and hydration. And then we'll get to the supplements. It's just like an extra bonus on there. So I'm excited to touch on this episode. But what about you guys? How's everything going up there?
Oh, it's going great, man. It's end of January, which means it's only 2 months away from us getting that 50-degree weather. So I'm looking forward to it. I definitely miss it, but actually in a couple of months we'll be down in Gulf Shores though. So I'm gonna be pumped down that, kind of run by and see you guys.
Yeah, for sure.
But yeah, man. So let's kind of start off with, what are the biggest mistakes that you see, Adam, when it comes to guys that ask questions and advice? I mean, you talked about the supplement thing. Like a lot of guys think that supplements is the answer and end all be all for gaining weight or gaining muscle. What are some of the questions that you kind of get that you kind of scratch your head like, hey man, you're kind of approaching this the wrong way?
Yeah, I think the biggest thing, it all starts with everybody that wants to gain weight will express their interest to you on, hey coach, what do I need to do to gain weight? And to keep it simple, because we talk about how just being important it is to keep things simple, I tell them they have to eat. And they're like, well, I do eat. And then we start to break down what exactly do they eat throughout the day and how many times are they eating? Well, you'll be surprised, and I know you won't, Sean, but our listeners will, that how many kids do not even eat breakfast. And so they're starting off on the wrong slate there. And then it kind of just spirals downhill where they miss breakfast. They don't eat lunch at the cafeteria until, say, 11 o'clock, 11:30. And they're just getting a piece of pizza at the cafeteria and some chips to go with it. All right. So now you really haven't put any nutrients into your body. And then later on, you're going to go try to get your workout in with Sean, or you're going to try to get your hitting in, whatever it is. And you're already behind the 8 ball. Your body's wanting to break down. Your body's not up to high level speed. And then your workout doesn't go as planned as you want to, and you're not seeing the gains in the weight room. So we come back and we approach our trainer. Hey, I'm not gaining weight. What's going on here? And it all looks back. If you got to look into the mirror at first. And it starts with, you've got to be dedicated to eating just like you are to your homework, to making good grades, to, if I want to get better at hitting the curveball, I practice hitting the curveball, whatever it is. But your eating standpoint has to take full and first charge. And a lot of it starts with, if you don't know, ask. And then when you ask, be ready for real answers too. So don't, hey, I'm trying to gain weight. What do I need to do? All right, I'll write you a whole diet plan. And then as soon as you get home, you forget what it was. Like, that's just plain disrespect. And it shows me you're really not dedicated to it. And so the athletes that are dedicated to it, and what's cool is in the Super Bowl right now, you're seeing Tom Brady, 43 years old, playing for his 10th Super Bowl. How important, I mean, he looks almost as good now as he did when he was 20. Like, his arm's stronger, he even looks better age-wise, like his face. I mean, he just looks younger now. And it's so important where he made a decision a long time ago of, hey, I'm not gifted the best athlete in the world, but how can I gain advantages on other athletes? And it started with making an investment in eating real and eating right food that worked best for him, as well as going in with sleep and hydration and what stuff we'll get into. But that's what's propelled him so long to still play at 43, and he can still keep playing until he's 45. Same thing with LeBron James. He's never has injuries. He's had one major injury. He plays every night. He's played for 17 years, however many it was. But he dedicates $1 million just to his meal plans as well as his strength and conditioning stuff. Yeah, it sounds like a ton of money, but he's got a ton of money, so he can do this. So we're asking you, just instead of going to get that $500 bat that you think is going to help you hit dingers, start investing in better meals. Start investing into a weight program, and then watch where you're going to start to hit balls harder and further without going to buy that $500 bat that's going to be pointless because you can't even swing it. So the biggest thing is this accountability and understanding that this is a process. And if you're truly wanting to gain weight, don't use the excuse that I can't, I've tried. Coach, I eat every time. I eat before dinner. I eat before bed. I'm eating breakfast. Like, this is a process too that we talked about with development of the peaks and valleys. When you first start, you're probably going to see a big jump because it's changing your nutrition up. If you go 5 meals a day, starting off with breakfast with a protein, some boiled eggs, whatever it is, a protein, fruit, veggies, and you start off that day, I promise you, give it about a week or two, and you're going to see a difference in how your body is, whether it's in the classroom, how alert you are. Your workouts are going to get better. Your performance is going to get better. But it all starts about creating a plan, attacking the plan, and then kind of writing out that process right there. But what kills me right here, and that's what I'll set you up with, Sean, is everybody wants the quick and easy, the microwave stuff. So they're going to say, hey, what supplements do I need right away? So if I approach you, Sean, I'm 15 years old, I'm 155 pounds. Hey, Coach Sean, I need to get muscle. My high school coach said I'm not strong enough. What supplements do I need to take? How do you answer that?
Yeah, so I break it down. When guys come in for consultations, guys start weight training with us. We have an hour-long consultation, and it's 30 minutes we cover nutrition, and 30 minutes we break down, 5 main movements in the weight room that we go. And I'm not going to break down those 5 main movements. Obviously, right now we're talking about nutrition. So I basically start with telling them, and most skinny guys always say, man, I eat a ton, like you just said. And I've never met a skinny guy in my life that actually eats what he says he eats. If he was eating what he says he eats, he'd be gaining the weight. And so the first thing I tell them is listen, so when it comes to supplementation, we're going to talk about this at the very end. We literally cover supplements for 2 minutes, maybe 3 minutes at the end. And with high school guys, I talk about 3 different supplements. I'll get to that later. So basically I tell them listen, first and foremost, write down everything that you're eating throughout the day. And you have to be honest with me. And if you're not being honest with me, this is a waste of time. So, and this is why I get pissed off, because I have to fight with young men and women like, hey, what are you doing here? What are you doing here? And they'll say, well, I'm eating a ton. Okay, so what do you do for breakfast? Like you said earlier, most kids don't eat breakfast. And if they do eat breakfast, it's usually a bowl of cereal or some Pop-Tarts. Mm-hmm. That's not good for you. That's not what you want to be eating. I will talk about Pop-Tarts later, though. It's not to say there's certain times you use simple carbs, so we're not going to talk about that right now. And then they usually will start, say you wake up at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m., they usually don't eat their first big meal until noon. So if we're talking about athletes, their body is craving those nutrients. They're craving energy. They're craving those macros and micros, and they need in their diet. So they have their first meal at lunchtime, and it's a school lunch. Sometimes schools do a good job. I mean, realistically, they don't necessarily cover everything they need to. And then so after school, they get done. Maybe they have a snack if they go straight home. But usually they're going to a practice, or they're going to, go do their, the practices for baseball, or maybe they're going to go do some strength training after school, speed, whatever it is. And then next thing you know, they're getting home and they're having really only their second really big meal of the day, and it's dinner time. And then maybe they'll have a snack at night. So you're essentially looking at 2 snacks and 2 meals a day. And that's not going to cut it. Like, you want to be an elite level athlete, you want to gain muscle, gain strength and size, it's not going to cut it. So I start with them. I say, listen, we're going to have 5 meals a day. Okay. We're going to have 3 meals before 3 and 5 meals before 9. So basically we start out as every day for breakfast, I want you eating eggs, some sort of protein, some sort of good fats. We're going to start off the day off right. If you want to have a bagel with some cream cheese, that's fine. Throw in some eggs with that. 16 ounces of whole milk. We're going to rock and roll from there. We're going to start our day off, our day off proper. And I also will start to them listen, during school, most teachers and most schools are okay with you guys with eating in between class periods. Some of them kind of get hard on it, but at the end of the day, we're in those situations before. We all found ways to eat. So basically I tell them we need to prep, and I give them this long sheet. So I give them an example of what they're getting for breakfast, for lunch, and for dinner. Usually families, for the most part, have dinners pretty covered. A lot of protein, a lot of carbs, good fats at dinner. And so we're looking at lunchtime. I tell them the same thing. We want to get as much meat, protein, veggies and fruit if possible, depending on what your school offers, and good carbohydrates. So basically I tell them, like, listen, if you wake up in the morning and you're consuming nothing but carbohydrates, like simple carbohydrates, like with cereal, you're going to spike your insulin up. You're going to have energy for a second, and then you're going to crash, and you're going to feel like you're falling asleep in class. It's not good. It's not what we want to do. And so I through 2 or 3 years ago, I did something that kind of changed my life. And I read an article from Charles Poliquin. He's a renowned strength and conditioning coach, one of the best of all time. He actually passed away a few years ago, I believe, or last year. And he would talk about how he feeds his Olympic athletes. And he would tell them every morning, you're going to eat steak and nuts. So a lean red steak and nuts. And so he would also mention about mixed nuts, how you need to change your nuts up. So changing, basically, if you're having cashews day 1, maybe you have macadamia nuts day 2, maybe you have pistachios day 3, and and so forth, almonds 4, and you just keep rotating from there. So what I read that, and I had actually heard that, I think back when I was in grad school, and I just, kind of dismissed it. I was like 22, 23 years old. I was like, oh, that's cool. And, went on about trying to learn everything else in grad school. So what I started doing every morning is I would start having 2 servings of mixed nuts. And those are calorie dense. You got a lot of calories inside of, there's a lot of calories inside of them. So if I have 2 servings of mixed nuts, I'm looking at 360 to 400 calories right there. I got some protein, some good fats, and helps me focus. It also keeps my blood sugar stable to where I'm not spiking, eating some Pop-Tarts or cereal in the morning. So I'll break this down. What happened to me is I started consuming this in the mornings, and my energy levels went through the roof. My focus went through the roof. I started getting leaner. I started gaining more muscle just by making that small change. So what I tell kids is I say, hey, we have 3 golden foods that we need to gain muscle. Number 1 is mixed nuts. Number 2 is whole milk. And number 3 is steak. And I say, technically, I cheat every single time. And I go, there's technically 2 more. And I give them, and I go, eggs is the 4th one. And then number 5 would be peanut butter, and natural peanut butter specifically, or you can use natural almond butter. You can kind of use the peanut butter and almond butter is the same thing as mixed nuts. You can kind of put those in the same category. But I always say there's top 3, and I give them 5 because there's always 1 or 2 kids that do not like one of those top 3. Yeah. So I it's really a top 5. So I got to change that on my consultation packet to really top 5. But anyway, so basically I tell them, like, listen, these are mandatory. You need to be eating these as much as possible. There's old studies talking about red meat, how bad it is for you, and all the new studies coming out. The lean red meat is really good. It helps with energy level, helps with, metabolism, recovery, obviously the protein. So the people that are listening to this right now, you could do your own research if you want, but I'm just going to tell you the results that we've had from what I'm getting ready to say and continue to say have been astronomical. They've been awesome. So I tell them first thing in the morning, if you're in a hurry and you don't make your eggs, you don't have your bagel, you don't have your good carbs, good fats, good protein, you're going to have 2 to 3 servings of mixed nuts. That's going to be your breakfast if you're running out the door. Worst case scenario. I tell them, like, don't do that, because our first snack of the day, what I want is going to be those mixed nuts. So in a perfect world, kid has his eggs, has his whole milk, has his bagel in the morning for breakfast, right? Whole wheat bagel, something along those lines. Unless you're a gluten guy, which I'm not going to get into that right now, you can adapt, and what I'm getting ready to say on this template, adapt to what your needs are. So meal 2, which would be at that 9 a.m. to 10:30 a.m. or maybe 11 a.m. time, that's when you're having your 2 to 3 servings of mixed nuts. It's going to help you with your energy. It's also going to fuel your body more and keep your energy for your classes. Then at lunchtime, say it's 12:30, 1 o'clock, wherever you are, it doesn't matter. You're going to have your lunch. And I always tell people, like, hey, we want to make sure that we're having chicken with pasta. Maybe we're having a hamburger, but we throw in some fruit, some bananas, and we throw in some good carbohydrates in with that. Drink our whole milk with that. We're going to have something that's going to give us energy for the rest of the day. So there's meal 3. Now, people that are listening is like, well, that's too much to eat before noon. Okay, well, move your snack so that you have your mixed nuts to after your lunchtime. So move it at 1 or 2 in the afternoon before you guys get out of school, between classes. Buy you a milk that's at school, or this is where supplementation comes in. And I'll get into more details of this later on another question, but You can bring a blender bottle with a muscle milk or a whey protein, some kind of source, have it in there, mix it in with water at the water fountain, which nowadays with water fountains, I don't know if those are available with COVID and everything, but you can mix that in, have some protein or have something to drink with your mixed nuts. So there you go. You got meal number 3 right there, which is going to be about 600 to 700 calories. Whereas if your normal snack would be, somebody would maybe sneak in a Nutri-Grain bar. It's 150 calories, all carbohydrates, which not necessarily that it's bad. We'll use Nutri-Grain bars when we need to in a pinch. But I always tell people, like, you can't just have one thing in your snacks. I tell them you have to pick 2 in the snacks. So if you're picking, let's say you have 2 servings of Cheerios and a banana, you need to have some whole milk with that if you're going to bring that as a snack for school. If you're a guy that really likes something to drink, and I'm a big advocate of making sure you're drinking a gallon of water a day, let's make sure we're not drinking pop, drinking soda, drinking something with high sugar with that. You can't count that as a liquid beverage, with your meal. If you're having a bagel for a snack, maybe you throw in some orange juice with that. So before 3 p.m., we've got our 3 meals. I'll give you just those short examples right there. You go to your practice, you go home, you're having your dinner at 6 p.m. or 6:30 p.m. Like I said before, we're going back to the lean meats. We're going back to good carbohydrate sources, maybe throw in some avocado, some good fats, coconut oils, so forth. Then at 9 p.m., which will be our 5th meal, we're throwing in our shake. And this is why I tell guys, like, on days that they lift with me, they're either going to consume some sort of a shake. And what I mean by shake is people listen, like, Coach, you said, supplements should be at the end. Well, we're putting real whole foods in there. So we're actually putting the peanut butters. We're actually putting the strawberries. We're putting the blueberries. I have this stuff where it's a mixture of sweet potatoes, oats, and yams and blueberries, and I'll put that inside of my shake. We'll do as much whole milk as we can. I can't have whole milk because I'm lactose intolerant, so I throw in water with mine. But again, you can adapt. I have guys putting Greek yogurt in there and coconut oil, which coconut oil I say is kind of the secret recipe, is the kind of the secret ingredient for these shakes. You can look up as much as you want on coconut oil, but it's a really good fat. I get the coconut oil has 93 MCTs, medium chain triglycerides. It's a liquid, so I could pour it in those shakes. 1 tablespoon. So people that are trying to gain muscle mass, 1 tablespoon of this stuff is 140 or 150 calories. So you could put in 3 tablespoons, you get 450 calories out of that. 4 times a week or 5 times a week, you're getting good fats. It's going to help you with energy. It's also going to help you get those calories in to gain muscle. So we do that a lot of times at nighttime. If they don't lift, if they don't have a high intensity day, instead of doing a shake, I just tell them, all right, well, have some cottage cheese and some applesauce. Okay. Maybe we're going to have, a peanut butter and banana sandwich before bed, something along those lines. If some guys are wanting to lean up and, trying to prevent as much fat gain as possible, I would say we're going to go more high protein fats at night instead of high protein and carbs at night. So right there at 9 p.m., we have 5 meals. Now, depending on the person and depending on the athlete, there's also peri-workout nutrition and nutrition around that, which we'll get to later. But right there, 5 meals before 9, 3 meals before 3, we're covering as much as possible. And there's 2 main rules to follow when you guys are going this plan. Is 1, I make sure I'm eating as much whole foods as possible. I keep the processed foods out as much as possible. And number 2 is make sure that we're consuming liquid calories. And what I mean by liquid calories is the whole milks, 2% milks if you want in there. Chocolate milk is a great option as well. You can drink your orange juice for breakfast, throw in some orange juice at lunchtime, something along those lines for somebody that's trying to gain weight and trying to increase lean mass. So right there, you have your 5 meals throughout the whole day. You're constantly consuming these foods. And the old school mentality with football coaches, they're saying like, hey, you can throw in peanut butter and jelly sandwiches, peanut butter sandwiches, in between classes. Those are phenomenal options as well, too. I just don't like consuming 3 peanut butter and jelly sandwiches every single day. So I try to make sure I give people as many options as possible. So I break that down, which is a very long-winded answer. But they by the end of that, they're like, these are options I can have. I have this list of 50 foods that they can consume. This gives them plenty of options. So if they're picky as can be, like the last kid I had as in consultation was very picky, he found at least 20 foods that he could throw in there because at the end of the day, we're creatures of habit. We're going to eat the same stuff day in and day out anyway.
No, you just covered a ton right there. And I think for those listeners that are trying to gain weight, like personally, that's what I was in high school. I was 165 pounds when I graduated, and I always fought that battle of trying to gain weight. But looking back, I'm going to own up to I was a very picky eater when I was young, as well as even up until probably high school. I mean, it was very simple. All I ever wanted was peanut butter and jelly sandwiches for lunch and a bag of Doritos. Breakfast a ton. I didn't do a lot. It wasn't until I actually wanted to even try to attempt to play in college that I got serious about, all right, if I really want to gain weight, I need to meet with people and discuss what I need to do to try to do that. And that's when my performance went up there. So we're not trying to bash you kids out there saying that, oh, you're skinny, you're not working hard enough, because here I wasn't. I'll admit it. I wasn't doing the stuff I needed to do to magically gain weight. I was a skinnier guy, and I was always going to be that way. So now it's the total opposite, where I'm trying to work on losing all this weight. You know, this is what happens when you're done playing. And so going forward, guys, what Sean just said, break it down, and we can put stuff up. We can send out emails to the listeners about the sample foods that we can give to these guys. So if you are a picky eater, you can still find stuff that works best for you. Because that's one of the answers right away is a guy, well, I don't feel like eating that. Okay, well, let's make a replacement for it. Or, man, I don't really want peanut butter sandwiches every day. Well, you don't have to do it every day. Just kind of mix it up a little bit, like you were saying, with the different variables you have there. So I'm glad that you were able to cover that situation there, because it is possible. But it all starts with commitment, too. Like we talk about just more than anything, is committing to wanting to do this and tracking your results with it. Sean, how fast would you say kids are starting to see results, like of weight gain and feeling better and improvements in the weight room? How fast, if they started, say on that Monday was their first consolation, how fast would they start kind of seeing results?
So I always tell them, like, what we want to do is we want to try to monitor this as best as possible. So I leave guys with, hey, we're going to consume, these 5 to 6 meals a day, depending on our goals. And we were looking at increasing about a pound per week is what was kind of what our goal is. And if guys come in and they're, 2 weeks in a row, they're 3-4 pounds over, or like, oh, hey, we need to cut out some shakes. We need to cut out some foods. Let's write down everything that you're eating so I can watch this and monitor this and kind of see. And I tell them, like, hey, the scale matters. Like, so you walk in like later in our lives, like we don't really care about the scale. We want to look good, we want to look good naked. Right. That's at the end of the day. So with you guys, it's all about performance. And for the athletes that are listening here, and even though Adam and I still lift and do things, part of ours is performance as well. But at the end of the day, we want to make sure that we're looking good. You guys can do both. You can achieve both of those goals. So the people who are listening, when it comes to their results, you usually should start seeing the weight gain within that first 1 to 2 weeks. Sometimes I'll give guys a free pass the first week if they're even. And I have a rule, like they have 25 push-ups if they're, below their weight. And each week it doubles. So if the next week it's 50, if you're below, next week it's, 100. They have to maintain this and kind of keep that honor code. And guys are always trying to cheat and get out of that. But if we're looking at these guys and they show up and they're like, hey, coach, I didn't gain any weight this week. All right, well, let's increase your shakes to 4 times a week at nighttime, your nighttime shakes. Let's make sure your foods are consistent. Because I say shakes here. If I'm watching a kid and he's growing, we might take the shakes away. And what I mean by shakes is like the real food. We're putting all those things in there together. We're putting the peanut butter, we're putting the coconut oil, things I mentioned before. But if they're doing that consistently, the results they see in the weight room, I don't want to say it's automatic, but it's definitely within the first couple of weeks. Like I've seen guys increase once they actually start gaining weight. I've seen crazy increases over a 6 week. We do 6-week cycles at Laird's training. So I'll see guys increase up to 50 pounds at times, like some newbies. That's crazy. Good gain for 6 weeks is 10 to 15 pounds, obviously. But if they're eating, you see that nutrition, and it's not a coincidence. You see the guys that are constantly going up in their weight, their lean mass, their numbers are also going up in the weight room as well. Mass equals power. But it's not only just mass. We don't want fat. We don't want a blob up there. We want a guy that's quality mass. We want something that's actually working and moving properly, has the mobility, has the strength, has the power as he's gaining those weight. So guys that are listening, like if you want those results, like, it's going to happen. Like you'll see that week to week improvement. You're going to hit a plateau. You might not gain weight for 2 weeks and then we pick back up the week after, but you'll see that improvement pretty quickly within those first few weeks when it comes to weight gain and your strength. But most importantly, energy. If you change the way you eat, I will say in the beginning, you might not feel good immediately because if you're used to eating junk, if you change your diet immediately, you're not going to feel right. You're not going to feel normal. It's same thing with people that, have been eating really healthy and then they start eating like crap and they feel like I feel like absolute dog shit. That happens to me all the time when I eat. So that was kind of a long-winded answer, Adam, but essentially within the first 2-3 weeks, you should start seeing your lean mass gains. You should start seeing your strength gains, but also you're improving your movement. So with the newbie effect, you see newbies improve really fast, really dramatically, really quick. The more advanced guys, they've kind of figured out their bodies and they're kind of aware of where they're at. So each year, like if I have a kid that comes in at 160, his first year, we might have a goal of being 175 to 180 the next year. Maybe his junior year, we go from 180 to 195 to 200. His senior year, maybe we're looking at 210 to 215. So it's a year-to-year thing where we're constantly increasing this progression. Now, depending on the height and size, like I got a kid who's 6'3", 6'4", 225. That's a good weight for him for what he's doing for his sport. I got a heavyweight wrestler, so he's more athletic and faster at 260 to 265 than he is at 280 to 285. So even though like certain amount of weight gain, like we kind of start seeing some of the athleticism go away. Okay, we're going to cut that weight back. We're going to monitor while we're eating a little bit more. Maybe we're going to change our training a little bit more, some more metabolic conditioning type stuff. So those are kind of things that I immediately see with guys and some of their reactions that we see within the first, 2 weeks to about a month. And once guys see those reactions, see the weight gain, oh man, I can't increase a pound a week. This is crazy. Oh man, I've gained 10 pounds on my bench this month, coach. Like, hell yeah, dude. That's awesome, man. Keep doing what you're doing. And we will adapt.
Yep. And I think more than anything, so now I guess the common answers we get back from this are, number one is I don't have time to. I'm too busy between school, homework, class, all this stuff. And then number two is, hey, well, I can't afford to eat like that. Eating healthy costs more money. And I think what people got to understand is think about how many times you'll run into Taco Bell to grab something real quick. Like all the fast food numbers add up and you'll just swipe your card through, where if you just go to the grocery store once a week and make out your meal plans, I think it just helps you, number one, hold yourself accountable, but also you can still do this at a reasonable price. If it costs a little bit more, oh, well, you're going to get better and your performance is going to get better. So I promise you it's well worth it in the long run. But this is something you can approach your parents about. If you're a kid listening to this, approach your parents about it, because I promise you, they're going to want to get on board with you to try to help yourself out. And the whole family's going to start eating cleaner from it too. Performances all around are going to get better. Here at our household, we had a talk on Tuesday with a nutritionist here that came and talked to our heat athletes. And it's a meal prepping facility that's actually in the same building we're located in. And their whole thing is it's all real food. And it's meal planning. It's cauliflower rice. It's just substituting the goods for the bads, what to avoid. And one thing that really stuck out to all the athletes the other night was Gatorade. And me and Sean will talk about this. If Gatorade is loaded down with sugar. So the next time you go to buy Gatorade for your little kid getting ready to play a travel ball tournament that weekend, just turn around and look how many grams of sugar are in that thing. And now you're loading that performance, that player up with that sugar where he's going to have that spike initially and then he's going to crash on down. And that's why some of these kids are getting so exhausted when they have that 2 games on Saturday and that second one's after a game in between. Then they look about dead with the Gatorade mustache on top of them too. And so guys, start to look at the labels, look at what you're buying. If you don't know, ask questions, get on the internet, look up different types of diets and stuff, listen to what we just talked about here, but don't tell yourself that, number one, that you don't have time, because you can create time. If you don't have time, it's not important enough to you. If you want to sleep the extra 10 minutes in the morning and skip breakfast just to get those 10 minutes in, you're not willing to sacrifice it. And so now your performance on the field is saying that you don't want it bad enough. And more than anything, we talked to college coaches. I'll never forget when in high school, the White Sox scout approached me and came to watch a game. It was the first time I met him, and he asked me to take my shirt off. This is before the game, before anybody's there. And I was kind of awkward about it. I didn't know what was going on, but he said, I want to see like where you can fill out more. And it was just interesting to see that a scout is looking at a player's body because he wants to see, number one, if you have a good looking body, what does that show? Dedication. It shows that you take pride in it and you work in the weight room. If you have a body that's sloppy, it shows you're probably lazy. You probably skip reps in the weight room and you don't care about your nutrition. So that stuff matters. The whole looking good in a uniform is real. I've talked to coaches. There was a pitching coach when I was with the organization. There was a player that got released because it ultimately came down to, can you picture this guy in a major league uniform? And they couldn't. And so they said, all right, he's out, just based off that. And we're not saying that's the end all be all, but it's just another armor in your pocket of, all right, I have this going for me. So there's not a negative going on. Because when these scouts are looking for stuff, yes, they already know what good you can do. Now it's what's the negatives here. He's kind of sloppy around the hips. He's got the baby fat down there. Well, can it be fixed, or is it a lazy kind of issue? Or all right, now let's look at the parents, see what they look like, because that's another thing. We had the coach from Indiana come on, Dan Held, the first one, and he likes to look at parents right away to see ultimately where's this kid probably going to grow up and be like. Is he going to be 6'3" like his dad? Most likely, he's got a really good chance to. And can he fill out more in a uniform? So if he's 175 now, let's kind of encourage him to gain weight and coming from another guy, and then get with a nutritionist and really try to set goals to reach this pound a week, like you mentioned. I love that the pound a week is perfect, as well as you're able to hold your guys accountable and you have them do punishment. It's push-ups, it's extra reps, because when you come in, you have every right to get mad at these athletes because they're coming to you to get better, and it looks bad on your end if they're not gaining weight because you're the one training them. And so everybody's going, I'm going to the LT, but I'm gaining 10 pounds on my squat over a 6-week period. No, that's not right. What we just mentioned before is you should gain at least more than that every time. So more than anything, it starts with that nutrition standpoint. And so I'm glad that, Sean, you hold your guys accountable to it, as well as it's just a part of the process and the culture that you've created there at LT, that why it's so serious. And you talk about it all the time is this is for serious athletes only. So if this is just a hobby to you, don't waste our time. We talk about it all the time on here. Are you just kind of interested in it, or do you do it because you love it? And so the nutrition part is just another thing that has to go along with it.
Yeah. And that's the thing is, like, when guys sit there and they say that they don't have time, to say that it pisses me off is an understatement, because, people think that they work hard, but they work hard based on their own mentality and their own effort level, but based on what they've done in the past. And when you work hard, you got to compare yourself to the other people, the real people in the world that are actually working hard. Like if an Adam and I can do it, having families, having kids, and running a business back and forth, you can do it as a kid going to school and going to practices. Yes, your time is taken up, but you've got to make sure it's basically time management. How can you get better at time management? How much time are you wasting on your phone? How much time are you wasting just, watching TV, just sitting around? Like, we all have times where we need to sit down, relax, and unplug. But if you're not getting the stuff you need to get done, and this is going to get kind of getting more motivational here, but like, there's certain things that I have to do every day before I do anything free time wise. And sometimes I get done at the end of the day and go, damn, I didn't get shit done. I didn't get any free time. So like, it is what it is. Like I know that I'm going to make sure that I read every day. I need to make sure that I'm taking care of my kids, taking care of my wife. I need to make sure I get exercise. Like if I don't get exercise, I feel like crap. And so there's certain things I have to do, and I'm going to do all those things before I sit down and go, hey, let's check out this, Netflix show, or check out this show on TV, whatever. I got to make sure that I earn my free time. I earn my time. And so when you're talking about guys, when it comes to, hey, I don't have this, I don't have that. When it comes to that time management, I will say that there are guys that miss the boat on over the course of 2, 3, 4 months on maybe 5 to 10 pounds of gains, or maybe helping their swing out a little bit better because they're like, you know what, I'll get to this later. And it becomes a habit. And the next thing you know, 3 months have gone by, 4 months have gone by, and you haven't changed anything. And so you got to understand, like when you come to see people like Adam and I, the reason we take this seriously is just like Adam said, you put our brand on your back. So if you show up, I always say, like, I guarantee you're going to get results one way or another, mentally, physically, emotionally. But if you don't put in the same work as those elite guys put in, those results are going to be minimal to average at best. And you have to understand, like, everything that we give you that hour you're with us, or that 3 hours a week you're with us, you have all those hours out of the rest of the week that you need to make sure that you're implementing what you're being told to do. If you don't do it right the first time, how about actually listening to this and doing it and doing it right the second time? Like, if you did it right the first time, if you did it wrong the first time, you're more than likely just doing the same shit you've been doing day in and day out. But we'll kind of get into the supplement stuff there. From there, like, what are kind of supplements that you've recommended for guys in the past, Adam? I know you had a nutritionist kind of come in. What did she kind of cover with you, with your athletes and stuff? What are some things that you recommend guys using when it comes to performance enhancement? Obviously, we're not talking about PEDs, but
yeah, so
helps guys get to that next level.
Yeah, ultimately, I think you said it earlier about the whey proteins. I think as real protein as you can get, the whey isolates. Just do your research on the proteins. Don't just grab it just because you saw it at Walmart. Do your research to see exactly if is it real protein, does it come from real food, where exactly is it coming from. Creatine has been a supplement I've recommended to athletes, not everybody, but if more of the college level, like the really high school 11th and 12th grade. I personally take it myself. I took it when I played. I personally didn't see any side effects of it, especially as long as you're staying hydrated. That's the number one thing you have to do more than anything. But just to gain powerful, explosive lifts. I mean, I may be wrong here, but isn't creatine in peanut butter? Like
it's in steak.
Steak. Right, there it is. It's steak. Yep. So that's the thing. It's already in food, and it's 5 grams of creatine that you're throwing into a shake, whether it's before or after. So that's one thing that I've recommended with athletes. But it's like I said, just to be safe. I don't know. I haven't done as much research, I'm sure, as you have and others. But once you're like 16, 17, if you can start driving, then if you were looking for something else to try to gain, let's add that to your little shake in there. And it's not with it where it's 30 grams of creatine. It's just creatine isolate, the 5 grams, stick it in before you shake and get ready to go with it. One thing I wanted to speak about was like the pre-workouts. So personally, I've done the energy drinks. I've did pre-workouts. I like the way they made me feel. Now, there were some that would give you kind of that itching feeling that I didn't like that standpoint. And I think that's what is that one? The beta-alanine? What is it in there that causes you to itch?
The beta-alanine, yeah. It's L-carnosine as well. Yeah, it makes you tingly.
I stayed away from doing that one just because I didn't like that feeling. Now, some guys enjoy that and it makes them break a sweat and everything going forward. So the pre-workout stuff, I don't know enough about them to recommend them to others. So I haven't dive in. I'm sure Sean can add some stuff onto it there. Mm-hmm. But more than anything, it's just the protein. It's just the creatine that goes with it. Some glutamine. I know we've done glutamine in the past.
Yep.
Done the BCAAs in the past as well. I think these are all kind of maybe more healthier options that have a little bit more information out there on what exactly is going on there. And it's good use there. What is your take on, like I said, I've done the Bang energy drinks. I've done the Monsters. I've actually cut them out now. So just go ahead. I've been a week without them. I'm trying to get away from doing those things and staying with the coffees and the actual real caffeine stimulant as opposed to the fake caffeine that gets pumped into you. So what are some supplements you like to recommend? And then how do you approach athletes that want like a pre-workout supplement?
Yeah. So this is a really good question because it's something that's brought up all the time. I want to be as real as I can here and not bullshit. Like I would say 2 years ago, I got to the point, but when I was in college and I was early in my career, when I guess after baseball, when I was a strength coach at a high school and running Laird's training part-time, I got away. I have no idea how I did this, but it was before I had kids. So I got away with using very little caffeine. At times I would, mess around with, a pre-workout every now and then. And I would end up being up all night. But I never did anything consistently. Once I started getting older and, my natural energy sources, I started testing out new things, like a Bang energy drink or, this Monster energy drink. I never drank any of the sugary ones. I've always been a guy if I drink sodas, I drink a Diet Mountain Dew is pretty much the only real soda I drink. I don't drink the dark colored sodas. So I'll drink Diet Mountain Dew. So I'm not perfect by any means. I primarily will drink water, flavored waters. It's like maybe I put some Crystal Light inside of waters and stuff. I'll drink a Diet Mountain Dew as kind of my caffeine source. In the wintertime, I usually do a decaf coffee in the mornings because we freeze our nuts off up here in Indiana. And then when it comes to coffee, I do use coffee, but I use coffee in the afternoons. I try to wait to get any caffeine into the afternoon because it kind of helps me with the rest of the day. Sometimes I'll have to do it in the morning if I get no sleep, newborn baby or whatever. But the coffee I'm drinking right now is called Super Coffee. And this coffee is like coffee on steroids. I feel like the energy, it actually has 10 grams of protein in it as well. It doesn't like crazy spike your insulin. It's only like 70 to 90 calories. It's super tasty. It's a little bit more on the expensive side unless you're getting it on sale. A-Rod, him and J-Lo just actually invested in this. I just randomly saw that. So I would highly recommend that for parents or people that are listening that want to have a coffee source that's high energy, as opposed to, your traditional coffee, because regular coffee obviously works, but this just happens to not bother my stomach. Usually regular coffee kind of bothers me. The Super Coffee for some reason doesn't. So that's from my side of things. Now, when it comes to the athletes, I tell them like, hey, why do you want to use a pre-workout? Mm. And they'll go, well, I want energy. I go, well, are you tired all the time? Like, are you tired when you start to lift? Because mostly, like, let's get real here. Teenagers they have high energy all the time. Like sometimes I look at my 4-year-old daughter and I go, man, if I can have an injection of that energy, I would be chilling. I would be living the dream. but they usually just do it because they think they heard somebody else do it. So I pretty much tell them, like, you don't need pre-workout. If you feel like you're absolutely dragging ass, there's a certain pre-workout that I like. So mostly I tell high school guys, hey, stay away from caffeine as long as you can. Don't worry about it. And they really don't ask me anymore about that. College guys, the pre-workouts that I've tested around with certain pre-workouts, and not one of them I liked except for one. There's this Muscle Tech one called NeuroCore workout, I think is what it's called. I haven't used it, to be honest with you. I haven't used it in months. I still have a tub in my cupboard. I have no idea if it's bad yet or not. Because I've gotten to the point where I wait to drink my caffeine later in the day, and usually a Mountain Dew will help me just fine, or a super coffee if I'm dragging ass. So I basically tell those college guys, hey, use this pre-workout. And also, when you're doing a pre-workout, let's look at the ingredients. So 300 milligrams that are in Bangs, that's way too much caffeine. Like, that is absolutely absurd. Like, and I would drink it. I'm a kind of a weird cat. I don't know what this, I'm not smart enough to understand this, but if I would drink 300 milligrams of caffeine, I'd actually feel worse. I wouldn't feel more energetic. I would actually feel like dog shit. So my sweet spot is 100 milligrams to 200 milligrams of caffeine. Usually that 100 to 150 is really good. If I drink a couple Mountain Dews, I think I get to that 100 milligrams or something like that. So I tell guys, like, hey, if you're going to do this, I want you to not consume this late at night, because it's going to interfere with your sleep. Usually that 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. time is the very, very, very latest you can consume caffeine or a pre-workout. And I'll tell them, like, hey, look for the 100 milligrams to 200 milligram max. You're not looking at going any more than that. That's just preference for me. So if somebody's listening, go, oh, that's bullshit. You should be at 250, 300. Do whatever you want to do. And obviously everything that we're mentioning right now, you need to check with your doctor first. I will say that family doctors don't know shit. There's still family doctors that are saying, don't take creatine. I had a family doctor that I got rid of a couple of years ago because she refused to give me anything for my triple pneumonia. I just want to throw that out there. Like, I had a doctor that didn't get my triple pneumonia until 2 weeks into it. So most doctors, unfortunately, I don't think do a very good job. My new doctor is awesome. He's the man. He's helped me out a lot. So I want to make sure if anybody listens to this, they don't think Sean's talking shit about doctors. So, again, the college guys. So we're going from late night games, 12-hour bus rides, just the crazy schedule. Sometimes you're going to need that. So I have no problem with that. I'll recommend those certain pre-workouts. I just tell them, be careful on the caffeine. They kind of regulate these a little bit more. There was the old school, I think it was Jacked 3D back in the day, that had that 1,3, it's like 1,3-dimethyl-ethylene or something like that. Forgive me if I'm butchering, if people know what that ingredient is, but it would cause heart problems, people would beat their hearts super crazy. And so you got to check what's in there. At the end of the day, go on Amazon. If you want a caffeine boost, go get 100 milligram tablets or 200 milligram tablets, and something, an amino called L-theanine. And that helps kind of reduce a little bit of stress, helps keep you calm. If you combine those two things, that helps you give a good energy without a major crash. I always was like, hey, if you don't want to mess with the pre-workouts, which I advise not doing that, except for these couple that I respect from these brands, just take a caffeine pill or have a cup of coffee. That'll help you with that pre-workout. That's kind of a long-winded answer, but I wanted to make sure that people know, like, hey, I'm not recommending taking pre-workout. It's something for when you're 18 or older that you can kind of maybe start getting into. High school guys, I don't believe necessarily need it. If you're tired all the time, get your ass in bed and go to sleep earlier. And that's the quickest way to have that's your pre-workout right there.
Yeah, and I know we touched on creatine, but what do you see the benefits of creatine use, and what would you recommend on how much to use?
So if there's someone that's read more articles on creatine, I'd love to meet him, because that's something I've been taking creatine since I was 13 years old. I'm 34 years old now. I have not had any side effects on creatine. The only thing I will say is, and this will go back to earlier, is making sure you're drinking a lot of water. There's a lot of water retention with the creatine, sends everything to your muscle cells. So make sure you're drinking a gallon of water a day to a gallon and a half a day. I've seen unbelievable results. When I was in high school and I first started taking creatine, I felt like I was on steroids. I was a guy that was very, very, very strong in high school. I'm not going to talk about numbers to say, measure myself here, but I felt like I was on steroids when I started taking creatine in high school, like consistently, because I started doing a little bit when I was 13, 14, right when I started lifting. And I would say right around 16, I went from like 160, 165 to 195 in a year. And creatine was one of the things I would immediately have post-workout. So for those that are listening, you could read a million articles. So parents, if you're listening, dads are always usually pretty cool about this. It's the moms that kind of freak out because it's in their nature to kind of take care of their children. I understand that completely. If you're asking for advice, ask for, like, I have a PN1 precision nutrition certification. We talk about, supplements a little bit in it, but it's mainly about whole foods. Like, yes, you're supposed to be eating whole foods first, but there are certain supplements that are going to help. A whey protein post-workout, or a whey protein that you can mix in with your whole food shakes at night. Creatine works really well. I'm a big fan of glutamine, like you mentioned before. BCAAs are good for recovery, which some of them have glutamine in it already. When it comes to the creatine, 5 grams post-workout is all you need. Some research will say, hey, you could take it any time of the day. Hey, you could take it at night. Hey, you could take it pre-workout. I remember reading articles on creatine about take 5 grams post-workout, and this is old school, like in the 90s. They say drink it with grape juice, because the grape juice will send that, it will spike your insulin, and that'll make the creatine work better. It'll send that creatine to your cells better. I'm still a big believer of that, of the post-workout insulin spike. But I will say this is, if somebody's reading this, say this is a better time to take creatine, blah, 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 blah. I'm telling you right now, in all the years that I've done this and all the kids, post-workout is by far the best. We take it for recovery. We take it to increase our ATP output and our power output. I can show you, I can sit here and send an article that says, this group of people took it in the morning. This group of people took it pre-workout. This group of people took it post-workout. This article shows that the people who took it post-workout increased more lean mass and their recovery, and they actually lost fat as well. There's research out that shows creatine helps with MS patients. It helps with cognitive function. It helps with people who are getting older, maintain muscle mass. There are so many good things that creatine does for people. I'm a big, big, big advocate about it, as you guys are listening. Now, when it comes to the types of creatine, you got creatine hydrochloride, you got creatine monohydrate, you got crealkaline, pH level creatine. There's a bunch of different types of creatine. For me, keep it simple. Buy your $15 tub that's going to last you 3 months of creatine monohydrate. Drink that post-workout. Talking about Gatorade. So people that are listening, the only time that you can consume simple sugars, or you're allowed to consume simple sugars, is either during your workout or post-workout. You can also do it pre-workout a little bit, but I'm not going to get, that's too detailed today. I basically will tell people, like, hey, your post-workout, you're going to have 1 to 2 scoops of protein, depending on the size of the athlete. If the athlete's really small, we're doing 1 scoop. You're going to consume a Gatorade, like a 16-ounce Gatorade, with your creatine. Or you can do your post-workout shake, your protein shake, with 3 bananas, and that is going to be more of a healthier option to kind of help spike your insulin a little bit on the glycemic index. With the bananas, take your creatine with it, or you can blend the creatine with the bananas and the protein shake in a Ninja blender all at once. The quick option, and this is like, people are listening, if you eat those simple carbohydrates post-workout, it's going to help you gain muscle, increase your lean mass. It's going to help your recovery completely. Because if you're not consuming food, or you're not consuming something post-workout, your body's going to start atrophying. It's important to consume something post-workout when it comes to protein and carbohydrates. The other option is 2 Pop-Tarts. So I have a rule where guys, especially the skinny guys, like, consume a package of Pop-Tarts with your protein shake and your creatine. That package of Pop-Tarts is roughly like 75 grams of carbs, and you consume that with 25 to 50 grams of protein. And that's a perfect post-workout meal right there, just immediately, those simple carbohydrates. Because some people, like, they think eating healthy is like, oh, the carbs are bad. Carbs are actually good if you use them correctly and use them right. Especially in the simple carbs as well. Like, if you think that these bodybuilders are getting up to 300 pounds just eating chicken, rice, and broccoli, you're full of it. We have to kind of cheat the system a little bit and have some simple carbs. Like, I'm gonna tell you right now, like, I really like gummy bears. Like, I'll be honest with you guys. And so I'll measure out my 75 grams to 100 grams of carbs of gummy bears, and I'll do that post-workout with my protein shake. Lately, I've been trying to lean up as much as possible. So I'll just do protein post-workout. So, there's different structure for different folks. You have different goals. Like, if you're a young athlete, you can consume a ton of carbs in that post-workout window and a ton of protein in that post-workout window. It's not going to turn into fat. You're going to gain that lean mass. And for me, doing that with the creatine to spike your insulin is absolutely huge. And I highly recommend that. Again, Me and Adam are not doctors. We are not recommending we're not telling you to do this. This is your option. This is your decision. You can check with your own doctor, do it in your own medical consult to do this. This is stuff that we've done in the past and just have had great gains going.
Yep, that's awesome. So, guys, when you're going to eat your Pop-Tarts, eat them after your workout, not in the morning for breakfast.
That's right. That's right. Absolutely.
Yeah. This is a fun one because, I think the biggest thing to take away, guys, is that your body is a billboard to others out there looking at you. So you're a walking billboard for yourself. So take pride in it. And when you're seeing guys that are having results, and maybe they're blessed a little bit more genetically, but start to evaluate, are you doing the best thing you can possible to reach your ultimate goals of being a certain weight or a certain body fat percentage, your weights in the weight room, whatever it is, just kind of know where you're at and evaluate yourself for kids in your grade. See, all right, so I'm kind of right here around 165 pounds where other guys are 185. So maybe that's a difference. And now we can kind of correlate it to baseball is being on that black team, so to speak, for the Indiana Bulls versus being on the white or the blue or whatever other color it is, just from a physicality standpoint. And ultimately, that's what it comes down to. Bigger, faster, stronger usually correlates to more success on the baseball field.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. And one thing I want to touch on real quick before we roll out is when it comes to supplements, this is what I recommend, guys. I recommend that protein. I recommend that creatine. I forgot one more thing. It's a multivitamin. You don't need a multivitamin. I just like to kind of use that as kind of cover all my bases because I'm going to be honest, I don't like vegetables. I love fruit. There's only certain vegetables I like to eat. And I will eat vegetables, but it's only 2 to 4 that I really eat a lot of. So if I can get some of my micros, and my multivitamin actually has greens in it. So I got a lot of greens and a lot of good foods in that as well. So people that are listening, those are the only 3 things you really need. You can throw in glutamine for recovery. Glutamine also helps with ulcers and preventing ulcers in your stomach for people that are listening right now. I've been taking glutamine like crazy. I'll consume anywhere between 15 to 25 grams, either pre-workout or post-workout. So people that are listening, do your own research on that. If people ever see me out in person, you can ask me about it and why I do those things. There's a doctor out of Ohio that talks about glutamine a lot. I can't remember his name right now, but he's kind of the information he's the guy I got my information from. So remember, guys, whole foods first. Drink that whole milk, eat your eggs, eat your steak, eat your peanut butter. Make sure you're consuming those foods consistently, day in and day out. But also remember, if you're not lifting weights and you're eating all this food, you're not going to gain muscle. So remember, you have to put in the work first. You have to put in the effort first. And, if you're not making those gains, you write down everything you're doing, ask your coach to kind of walk through this and read through this. I will say that a lot of coaches, there's a college coach that gave one of my athletes a 2,500 calorie meal plan. And he goes, "Coach, why am I losing weight?" And I go, "What are you doing right now?" He goes, "Well, this coach gave me this 2,500 calorie meal plan." I go, "Well, that guy's an idiot. No offense to him, but 2,500 calories would be good for maybe a soccer mom that's trying to gain a little bit of weight. But dude, you need 4,500 to 5,000 calories for what your size is." So remember, not all baseball coaches know everything, and not all baseball coaches are stupid too at the same time. So his coach, although he meant well, I gave him a soccer mom plan for some reason. So make sure you get advice from somebody that actually knows what they're doing. And here's a quick hint: if the guy has gained muscle and is strong in the weight room, and he's ripped, he's got muscle, or he's produced a lot of athletes that are like that, that's the guy to ask questions to. Or if you want to get an actual consult from an actual nutritionist or sports nutritionist, that's somebody to listen to. Listen to some guy with a pot belly that says that he produces a lot of guys that throw hard and lift big weights. We'll have to see about that, because I would have to see those guys are probably doing that themselves. But I wanted to end with that. Anything else you want to end on, Adam?
Nah, man, I think we covered a lot today. So this is going to be a good one, guys.
Yeah, guys. So I hope you guys enjoyed this episode. Make sure you guys leave that 5-star review. And until next time, we'll see you guys later.